Hello.
Why doesn't it work?
Because it always wants to make us.
Yeah, no.
There we go. Yay.
Zoom always starts without video.
Yeah, it's funny. I ask it to start with video. But
Yeah, well, I didn't. It always allows me to at least put out a cigarette.
how are you, dear?
I'm good. Yeah, I had a few days off after finishing my painting project.
Oh yes, you've been busy.
I've painted my mom's house and all the knicks-knacks around the house. So I was working at it for 3 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, kind of not. I started on a Wednesday and I finished on a Wednesday. So it was 2 weeks divided over 3 weeks.
You could come and paint my house.
Oh, I will. Yeah. How fun would that be?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yes. I always thought, oh, I have time to be. No.
Not with kids around.
But it would be, I've seen some of your photos. It would be very nice to be out in that glorious spring sunshine.
Yeah. I had a bit of sunburn, just the edge of my ear, but it's okay now. I don't do sunburn very easily. I just tan. Yeah, I'm lucky like that.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's different? Did you change the angle of your camera?
Yes. So I am sitting. I normally have my computer over here pointing this way, but I went. Oh, I had to sit here to do a consult. Yes, to do my consults yesterday because the sun was really bright but really low, so it was shining right in at my computer. And I went, actually, this chair is much nicer to sit on and chat for ages than my weaving stool. So yes, I had to shift some plants that are normally where the computer is onto my weaving loom temporarily, and yes, yeah. It's just
you look beautiful.
Thank you. A bit more cozy, and these guys get to say hello, and you get to less peek at my weaving too.
Oh, that's what you're weaving. I only see a light spot.
Yeah. Hang on. Oh no, hang on.
Oh no, doesn't work. Leave it.
I will. Anyway, you can start to get an idea of how giant my weaving loom is, but you probably know about giant weaving looms anyway.
It's a big one, yes.
Yeah. But I'm very much enjoying playing with it again because I hadn't for ages, so that's nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So has anything, what has been musing in your world of late?
A lot of wordless things.
Word.
Hi, Kim.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to see you again. So you have a scarf evening?
It's not as cold as it was last week, but I have no heating. Been sitting still for a while, feeling a bit cold, so yeah. Thought just in case, bring it anyway.
Okay. So we have a short week. About the first time this year.
Nice.
Yeah, it's relatively hot, which means just above 20 degrees Celsius.
The weather here has been amazing. On Friday, I had to keep reminding myself it wasn't spring. All the plants looked like they were thinking it was spring. It felt like spring. I had to go, no, winter starts in a couple of, we haven't had winter yet. Yeah, it was glorious. So we'll see.
Yeah, I hear that from all around the globe that plants seem to think differently about timelines now.
Yeah, yeah. Like my ash tree was flowering, and I'm like, it often flowers early, but not in mid-autumn. um, yeah, that's interesting. Can you elaborate on that about the plants and the timelines, Eliza? Because it's something that I've been pondering.
Well, I read something last week, and I'm really not sure what to make of it, or if it is if there is any truth in it. And it said something about Lemurians coming back, and aliens coming inside the atmosphere, coming to aid Earth with this new Earth stuff that seems to be going on. And was it yesterday or the day before? Well, it doesn't matter. I read something about the Schumann resonance was timed out for an hour and a half, and that was supposed to be a reset of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing I noticed looking back, the timing of when this blackout in Schumann resonance would have been was something that woke me up, like something weird is going on. And well, it woke me up, and it was an energy I did not recognize. And then the next day I found out it was this Schumann thing that had a change. And I don't know, I don't have any proof of it, and I cannot feel into it as if anything would be true. And maybe there is some truth is in it, and the plants know about it and react. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the plants, that's interesting because it's not like, yeah. I was just curious as to what you had heard and read because I was feeling into the plants the other day when they seemed to be thinking it was spring, and it was just very quickly because I was busy, but I was like, what's going on? And they definitely, it's like they thought they felt the energies of spring, yet what was it like? It's almost like I posed the question, why are you confused? Because we've always been taught, or I'd always been taught from a study, not a metaphysical study, a more mainstream study perspective, that plants read the seasons on day length, not temperature or energy or anything else. So all the sort of mainstream botany studies have led us to believe that to be the case. And I was sort of putting that question out to them. I'm like, well, our day length hasn't changed. So why are you confused? And it was, I feel into the answer that sort of collectively came back. It's that like the energies are all changing. It's like, how would you not want us not to be confused? Yes, that hasn't changed, but everything else is changing. It's like the weather patterns are changing, the electromagnetic like influence that they're being exposed to is changing. Everything's changing. And it was almost like, well, we're just playing with it. It's like, of course we know it's not spring, but we're just playing with it. Like, a lot of it is like it's spring. So is it beneficial? Like, if I read into it now, it's like a playing with it. Is it beneficial for us to play around with the idea that it's spring now? Yeah. Just playing with the energy. Certainly the plants in my garden were very much like there. And playing with is not like light jovial playing. It's just like contemplating, like things are different. Yeah. So, but I would love to sit and make some proper space to be able to delve into that. I think that will be very interesting for people, or for us to explore, because our cycles are changing, and if the cycles of the beings around us are also changing, like being able to feel into that and connect into that a bit more would be, yeah.
And what a great example. Like, okay, things are changing, and let's explore in how we can do some extra blooming and burst into beauty instead of running around confused because things don't add up anymore. Let's just have a playful exploration of new possibilities.
Yeah. Thank you for putting that so nice and succinctly. I do love it when you can draw my musings into some coherent, I just pose a ramble, very many tangents out there, and you can just.
Well, the interesting thing is that I listen to myself talking and thinking, where does that come from?
I was speaking to someone the other day about who understood my just posing these tangents or these concepts that, or a sentence, which to me is not just the sentence that I say, but it's all the tangents that spring off it. And she follows those, but then a lot of times when I speak, people don't. I'm like, oh, that's right. I have to keep reminding myself that not everyone can follow those invisible tangents that I'm just putting out there. But so maybe that clearly you just pick up on my visible tangents and bring them into solidity for me.
Yeah, and all the other 10,000 thoughts that come with it.
Yeah.
As you speak. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very nice. It's a bit of a revelation for me, actually. I can't believe that as an intuitive and a psychic and someone who's worked in this field for so long, that I had actually missed that's not the normal way that people think. I'm like, how could you have missed that tiny little fact?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's never too late to learn new things.
Well, there's a tree outside my window and I can see it just above my laptop, and it was listening in. It always does, and as of lately it's either more interested or more conscious, or I don't, yeah, something is changing, like oh, a lot of unconsciousness has been lifted, she says. And it's my fault because I've lived here for about a year now, and my being here seems to have facilitated the lifting of unconsciousness. So thank you for that. And she's now exploring, like this tree blooms in wintertime around Christmas, which is unusual for the Netherlands. And so she's finished blooming now and there are leaves. And us discussing this spring and autumn theme makes her ponder, she'd love to bloom some extra. It's interesting how that, if that will show up and how it will.
Yeah.
So there's again this connection, this grid, this us being on different parts of the world in bridging information. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. The bridging information and bridging seems to be a really big theme. Mila got out of bed last night and she sat down. She's like, so what are you doing? Maybe you'd like to do some weaving? And I said, oh no, I don't feel like doing any weaving. She's like, well, perhaps we could maybe do something because I'm available. I'm like, you're supposed to be in bed. She's like, yeah, but I'm really not sleepy. And I'm like, well, I'm doing this work, but you can sit here with me for a few minutes if you like. If you just want to be close, you can do that. And she sat down and she started writing, and she doesn't write very much. She was concentrating really hard. And I'd actually down here. I didn't even realize it was. Anyway, and she was writing down the lyrics to a song or the words to a song that I assume that she sings at school. And the words to that song, and I find it so interesting that they're just here because I had it tied into something else as well, but it was like, building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you as you reach out to me. With all of our voices and all of our visions, together we can make such a sweet harmony.
Mm. Beautiful.
So beautiful. And it was like, once she'd shared that, and then she sang it to me, and I'm not going to sing it to you right now, but she sang it to me beautifully. Perhaps we can teach it to Kim, and then Kim can sing it for us next. Or maybe I can get over my
We could together.
yes. Once she'd done that, then she was okay to go back to bed. She just had to share that. Yeah. So yeah, that bridging, I think it's real. That's so, it is really the theme, isn't it? It's like there's been so much separation, so much growth in people, like so much I'm better than you because I've done this spiritual growth, or I'm better than you because I can talk to this plant, or I'm better. It's like, and this idea that some people seem to have that all those people can just move on to new earth and those other people just will get left. I'm like, no, it's actually it's all of us, all that. We need to bridge those differences within us, inside us, between species. It's like the grids are the bridges. And for those grids that we keep talking about and we keep hearing about and people keep speaking about, they can be something really esoteric, but they can also be really, really practical, tangible things in our day-to-day life. For these grids to actually lift us up fully out of that, they have to be more than just an esoteric, energetic concept. They have to filter through into our everyday waking consciousness. And that bridge of I reach out to you as you reach out to me, like as we do that for someone, as we see someone in pain who is struggling, or as we see someone in trouble or something that is not right, and we reach out to do that, we're actually strengthening, creating and developing those grids into the physical, which has to shift, because if it doesn't shift, none of it can shift.
Yeah, it's something I got increasingly aware of over the past few weeks, that the spiritual, esoteric, not visible to the eyes stuff requires to be inside molecules to be effective on Earth.
Yeah.
And I think we're a part of that. And simultaneously, I got a gentle nudge. Yes, I am part of it, and I'm not all of it. I don't have to do the work all by myself in everything right now. I am a part of that.
Mm. As is everyone.
Yeah, and it's not up to me to save anybody or anything, or to force information to people who cannot receive it. And it's not up to me to wake someone up. People choose what they choose when they choose it. And I can be on the rooftop at moonlight and dancing a hula hoop. If they cannot receive, they will not receive at that moment.
Yeah.
And for me, it was I felt like a burden was lifted, in the sense that apparently somewhere along the lines I had decided or thought or assumed that I am one of the few who has to do it all. And that's not what it is.
Mm.
And yet, continuing to be a vessel for the esoteric stuff to find a way inside or into molecules, that is apparently part of my being on earth in this embodiment right now.
Yeah.
And it's not a job thing, it's not a doing thing. And there's no pressure for my thinking mind in it. Being the bridge, being the vessel is what I am anyway.
Yeah.
And allowing things to flow, or well, even the big fights that are going on outside now, some things have to be in order to be able to change when it's time. And it's not up to me, it's not my job. It has to play out the way it plays out. And yes, I am a part of that, and it will go on with or without me, if and when it's time. So that's a loss of a burden.
Yeah. That must be very freeing and much easier to
Yeah,
play.
yes, and I'm probably mistranslated to a loss of direction,
Yep.
as in, so now what?
Yeah.
Well, that's still playing out. I still don't know what. And part of me is kind of sort of waiting for
Yep.
things to have played out so I can go forward.
Mm.
And there's this impatience and not wanting to wait. And okay, if this part requires to be later, what to do in between? And of course, the mind shit kicks in as well, like being jobless, having no income, blah, 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 all that shit. And simultaneously, there's this knowing it'll be okay. And am I okay? Yes and no. To have things play out and to wait and see what shows up and to be the faith that things will show up that provide these molecules to have a house and food and all those comfortable items. And like job hunting is like shooting for the stars or aiming into the nothingness at the moment. The way the world seems to adhere to stupidity. Ah.
Mm. Yeah, we're faced with this amazing opportunity to reshape our economies, reshape the things that people do, reshape all of these things. Yet there's these huge grinding machines that didn't really stop. They just slowed down, and they are just edging, like, you know, they're just so eager to get back into second gear because it's like they've just geared down. They haven't at all stopped, and they're just so what is it that we can plant? What seed could we put out there in addition to the many other seeds that have been planted that can I guess take root and grow? Because what actually has to happen is that these huge big machines that they're moving, they've got a lot of momentum behind them, but they're slow to move off again. So if you can plant little seeds that just take off. So we've got this opportunity for these little things to take off and grow really fast. It's like there needs to be lots of little things that can just grow really fast, because if that happens, it's really the only thing that's going to slow down those big machines.
Like weeds, you know?
Yeah, like rewilding. Oh my gosh, I just heard this thing about rewilding in the Netherlands. The Netherlands just keep popping up in my life all the time. But they were talking about this rewilding in the Netherlands. And how in this one area, there's apparently some 60-kilometer area or somewhere in the Netherlands that has just been returned back to wild forest.
Oh, it's interesting. You tell me.
And apparently all these insects that haven't been seen for ages and all these animals are all coming back to this area. And yeah, they have for that process to start, they have to start with all these little weed seeds. And because it's the weed seeds that start to prepare the earth and to change the terrain. And that was really the vision I was being given. It's like the only way to stop these huge grinding economic machines from just starting up again so that there's hardly any space is for all of these tiny micro enterprises like weeds just to pop up, because there's so many gaps and spaces at the moment. There's so many needs that people have that I would love for them to be filled at the moment. And it doesn't have to be. And what's being called for is not the big plan. It's not the big picture, but it's just lots and lots of little things that change. So it's about bringing control back to the small people, because these small micro enterprises that get set up in little communities, they just grow. Like weeds only grow for like a season, but they change the terrain. They make it so that other businesses or plants can then come in and grow in that new thing, and it changes the topography, and it changes the soil, and it changes the nutrients that are available. And
like thistles, you mean?
Oh, like all sorts of weeds. So thistles will grow in an area that is needs something. They come in, they grow for a number of seasons, and then they stop.
Yeah.
Everyone goes, "Oh no, the thistles!" Ah.
Yeah.
You certainly.
I noticed when I was at my mom's place, there's this area in their property that they normally don't use, and it's a good spot for the evening coffee after dinner. And it was used to store whatever. And there was some terracing underneath.
Yeah.
That has been filled with leaf litter, and it's also the area where they cut wood. So all the sawdust had settled there, and they cleaned it out, and it was tiled and clean and flat. And within 2 or 3 weeks, the thistles came in between the tiles. And I tried to explain to my family that the thistles come first, along with dandelions or dandelions, how do you call them?
Dandelions, yeah.
To prepare the area for fruitful things to grow. And there was also this fight going on, like these stupid thistles, and now I have to do work before I can have a seat there and drink my evening coffee, and blah, 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 stupid weeds. And that not even being able to grasp the concept that nature itself has learned to have a set of pioneer plants to be in preparation for what can grow later.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that vision that I was being given then was very much that as an economic model is what needs to happen to stop our absurdly ridiculous monolithic machines from getting going again. And it's like there's this really short window of opportunity for that to happen, because if all these weeds grow up around these machines at the moment, they will kind of choke them, they'll stop them moving, they distract. Like it's like, I guess from an economic sense, they don't need to get moving as quickly if these small things start, because all any government wants is just for money to be moving around. They don't actually care for those huge machines. They only care for them because of what they do, right? They have no compassion for them. They have no feel. They make money, and that's what they care about. So if something else comes in and takes its place and's making money, they're not going to go, oh, I've got such a warm heart for this big old monolithic machine. No, they don't actually care at all. They will very quickly jump on board with whatever's making the government money and helping the economy get moving.
Well, thank you for putting a big question in my mind, in the sense that I know I don't, no, it's not, require is not the right word. Aspire?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A new job.
Yes, no, it's not time for aspiring a new job at the moment.
No, and so you spoke about micro enterprises and the thistle thing. So my question now is, what would be my thistle business?
Yeah, your thistle business. I was contemplating that too as I was doing, and I reckon it's got something to do with art and maybe your muses. It's like something simple by donation, and it's like by encouraging other people. Like your thistle business can't actually help at all unless hundreds of other people also have thistle businesses. So maybe your thistle business is encouraging other people to grow thistles. Maybe it's handing out thistle seeds. Maybe.
Well,
Which links do you know that little sparks of light or along the grid? You know, is that the same thing as connecting people into the grid, or a similar thing? I don't know.
well, I know by law, farmers in the Netherlands are required to remove the thistles from their fields. It's a law. You get fined if you don't.
Yeah, I think we have a noxious weed bio laws here.
Well, maybe the laws are the noxious weeds.
Yeah.
I have to show you something, but I have to get up for it.
Okay.
Here I am. So after all this painting, I've had some time to paint.
Ah, beautiful.
I'll
Gorgeous.
keep talking so you can watch it, because otherwise, normally the one who's speaking is in the frame. So this was actually inspired by an Australian artist, and I had fun playing with it. It's supposed to be some kind of a park or forest or floral theme.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I don't normally do things like that, but I thought it was fun, so I tried it. And here's the other one. This is the unfinished one. It was a vision, the colors that pop up when I fall asleep, and this one I remembered. It's unfinished yet.
Okay.
And one of the things inside, like the big black thing here, I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, yes.
Crystal.
Mm.
Yeah, this is a shungite. And well, this for now is my representation of this rock. And well, the paint is dry now, so I can finish it later. But probably not today. I have an appointment this afternoon to have an exchange for some energy healing with a friend of mine.
Ah, lovely.
I'm looking for. But I like to play around with paint or whatever colorful things there are, and trying to put what I saw in my dreams or in my visions onto a piece of paper or canvas. But what I see is alive, it's moving, it's so it's hard to put in paint, and still it is a representation, and I it's not like I have to, but I can't not. And now our thistle business, I like the concept of it. and now these paintings come back in, like, we want to be part of that. So.
Yeah, so is it about encouraging, like the thistle, like, so your thistle business that's not handing out thistle seeds potentially, or maybe the art, what I was going to say is, like, there's something about the, like, being inspiring to other people just to create, just for the sake of creating, and creating a safe space to create with no pressure, with no, it's like, and in that, it's like by holding that space, what I saw when I said art's like you're holding space to encourage other people to be creative, which encourages them to allow their thistle seeds to to grow. And yeah, it's like, so yeah, small little groups that you can inspire.
Yeah. Even if it is by painting a house.
Even if it is by painting a house, yes.
And it's interesting. I told you about the birds, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, they flew out
Yes.
on my last day of painting there.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful to be a witness of that, to see the small birds come out of the nest and have the first flight. And during this whole process of being around the house and touching various parts of the house and the surroundings and in the garden, there was this melting together of me and the objects I played with. Like there was one part of the wall I felt pulled inside energetically, and it was a hug. There's this embrace of gratitude from this part of the building to me for taking care of it. It was touching.
Very beautiful.
Yeah. I never knew that would be even possible. And I now get that being willing to be aware of that and receive it is a part of being a bridge. And I had this quick thought that I need to write a blog about this, and I didn't because of the silliness. And what if that is a thistle seed?
Well, it was interesting just before you said that you were going to write about it. What flashed through my mind is when you said a bridge, and I said, and yet, and my mind went, yes, and the importance of writing it down so that someone, whoever it may need to be, may stumble across it whenever they may need to stumble across it. And then you went, and I felt like I needed to write a blog. My brain went, yes, you did.
Okay, I stopped writing altogether for the last few months, which is interesting since I now have more time than ever.
And just being aware that those things might not, you're not necessarily writing them to be consumed now. You never know when that person that needs to read your writing may stumble across what you've written. They might not see it for 10 years, but if you write a blog and you send it out there with whatever, with the right title so that it can be stumbled across, you never ever know what.
So what would the right title be? Well, let's have that float for a while, and I will ask the building.
I was going to say I don't have that I don't have
and
that.
It's not for today anyway.
No.
I like it. A thistle business.
Yeah. Awesome. It's interesting that we've got to that point about flowing out those little bits, because that's very much actually what started our relationship, Eliza, is when I stumbled across things that I had written down that I really should have. I mean, yes, granted, someday when I die, someone might stumble across some notebooks that I've written and read it. But it would be of much better service to humanity if I actually wrote those things down and put them into some form where the likelihood of someone stumbling over them is greater. And how often we don't do that, because when we have an epiphany or we have an understanding, we think we're going to hold it forever. And a lot of times those epiphanies and those realizations and that wisdom that we are granted, it's transient and it moves through our awareness. And yes, we learn from it and we grow from it, but we actually have an obligation to record it, to write it down, and to put it in some form where someone else can benefit from it. And I know that I don't do that enough, and this is a chastising of myself as much as anybody else, or very much myself, is that when we are being like a channel to that wisdom, when some being is either providing us with that epiphany or linking us into some understanding that might not be common knowledge, we're actually we can look on one level, we can just embody it and embrace it and turn it into our energetic blueprint that we radiate into the world. That path is a path where we have to be much more practiced and much more precise and much more in control and disciplined about our energy, because it's like we get this wisdom, we have to embody it and make sure we continue to radiate that in our energy field, and not allow our personality. It's like if we, because we all have personalities, you know, we're not always aligned with our soul vision all the time unless we're enlightened masters, and then the personality doesn't exist anymore. So whilst we're here in this body molecule complex with a personality and an ego, we're not always going to be able to hold that wisdom that has passed through us. So we really owe it to the betterment of humanity to record it in some way, so that it's not a transient thing that is missed, that has to be relearned. Because that's the thing, if we record it, the ease with which it can be digested and relearned is much greater.
Interesting part for me though is that when I set out to write something, by the time I have a pen and paper or started my Word document, the energy has already changed.
So maybe it's about carrying around a pen and paper so that you actually are just writing it down at that moment, so that it's not distilled and changed by your personality and your thoughts and all this other stuff. It's just as that awareness comes into your being, you can actually distill it then and there.
Yeah, and that's interesting as well, because I usually do have some kind of writing tools with me. And then I have to stop the car to write it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even then, when it's just this 2-word note to myself to remember to ponder upon later, in writing or not. And then still it has already been integrated or passed on, or it's not new anymore.
Because
like,
it's, sorry, keep going.
Like it's airborne, or like.
It's like that waking dreaming. It's like when we can wake from a really profound dream, and sometimes if we don't still ourselves to integrate or write down or record that dream, we move, things happen, and what was so crisp and we were convinced there was no possible way we would forget it starts to fragment, and it starts to break apart, and then you're sitting there as it drifts away, and you're like, how is that even possible? How could that? So when we are receiving those moments of moving into those other dimensions of awareness, when we're receiving those things, it is very much like waking dreaming. And it's really important that we practice like observing and recording it in a way when it's coming, when it's right there, because otherwise it's like trying to write down a dream 6 hours later and you're just actually remember it, like you're going by memory, and well, we all know that that's infallible. I find that my I'm wishing for a waterproof dictaphone, because I have these amazing revelations and realizations in the shower, and then as soon as I'm like, oh, when I get out, I'm going to write that all down, and then I'll be like, oh, when I was in the shower last night, I had some amazing thoughts, didn't I? And I'm like, but I haven't even remembered that I was going to write it down. But it's like as soon as they turn the water off, it's like, it's just.
So there is this kind of waterproof whiteboard.
Oh. Okay, do tell. I was musing about some of that with someone who was saying she wanted to waterproof something because she was getting light codes in the shower, and every time she stepped out, they were gone.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of like a whiteboard, and also the pens that go with it are waterproof and yet erasable.
Oh, yeah. That sounds fabulous. I'm going to get one of those for the side of my shower.
Yeah, I think you'll have two. One in kids' height and one in your height.
Yes. Sounds beautiful.
I found the voice memo app on my phone to be really useful too, to just record quick ideas or little melodies or things that similar thing, I'll get melodies or rhythmic patterns in my head, and to just be able to quickly document them, because yeah, they disappear. There's lots of little voice memos.
So how does it work for you, Kim? I'm starting to notice more and more that when electricity is involved, things dissipate faster. And I'm noticing it's not even a choice or wanting to move in that direction. And I'm going more and more analog, like the real pen and paper things, and less, especially my smartphone. And it's also my mental resisting to being tracked and traced like a parcel. I notice my phone is in flight mode more often, and I never had it like this before, but now when I plan to go out of the house, I ponder like, where am I going? What am I doing? Do I even require to bring the phone?
Yeah.
And yes, if I plan to take pictures, I have to, since there is not another device available at the moment. But I just leave the house without a phone, and the freedom of that. And of course, it is a mindfuck to think that now I'm tracked and traced like it wasn't before, which is a lie.
Yeah. Just
and
convenient.
yeah, the perception of freedom to analog living, and yeah, it's different, and I like it so much. I want to explore more of it, which is a contradiction to writing blogs and all that kind of. So how is that for you, Kim?
Well, I think actually when I'm thinking about words, and if I'm writing words, I'm physically writing them. So the words are something about the physicality of writing words, pen on paper, that's really important. But for recalling a melody or a rhythmic part, it's so that voice memo is such a good tool, really useful tool. Yeah.
And how great it is available.
Yeah, and then I can come back to it later, and then I can write the notation, and I can develop the work or I can transfer it to the piano. But the little seed that came through has been captured in the moment. Yeah.
Correct.
So that's where it works for me. Yeah. But analog is good. And I much prefer actually handwriting the notation as opposed to using an app. But there are some shortcuts to using an app. If I'm writing or creating charts for other people, it's sort of easier to do that as well. So a bit of both.
Yeah, and it's not like I would erase the digital world in its totality and less screen time and more analog time, and allowing myself to feel the freedom. Maybe that's the seed of it. And also the tricks my mind plays with the perception of lack of freedom, or like observing what our government is doing in terms of new regulations. I wonder when common sense have died. And being in a non-digital environment seems to feed or strengthen my sense of common sense, which I require for me. And simultaneously it seems to create, is it separation or space or something else between me and the rest of the world? And then again, how to bridge that in a way that supports me and others. There's me again with my simple questions.
I had a bit of an I had a shower epiphany. And I had been feeling really, I'm trying to think when this was. I'd been feeling really pretty crappy. I'd gotten to this really feeling really flat. It must have been in the middle of the week last week, I think. And I'm like, okay, I just have to, I got a directive, like I squatted down in the shower, like I often will do, squat and put my hands on the ground and connect with my feet and my hands on the earth in a squat position. I squatted down in the shower and I had my hands twisted up like this. I was just like, and I've got it written in a diary. I do have it written down somewhere because I'm trying to remember exactly what. And I heard a voice in my head. It was less like, just connect with the earth. And I put my hands on the earth. And I just heard the phrase, like, is it an act of love or is it an act of neglect? And I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting question. And I'm like, okay. I was like, wow, it was just like this light bulb. And I have been playing with that over the last couple of days, and has been so incredible to me how many things that I do in my life which aren't actually acts of love to myself or my surrounds, or they're actually acts of neglect. And I was like pondering this. I'm like, how is this possible? How does someone like me, who prides themselves with being very much aligned to love and act from love, act not from love, but from neglect so many times. And I was like, oh, wow. And then I had this, I realized, which was made me allow myself to let go of it a lot, that in my late teenage years, yeah, it would be, well, it was not my late teenage, probably in all my teenage years. Through my teenage years, I developed this disgust or disdain for the way our society functioned. And the way that I chose to express my disdain for our society and the machine of our society was through an act of neglect. So having very messy hair or not abiding by the standard that is our society would expect of us. So to me, neglect was my act of rebellion. And I got over the need to rebel quite some time ago. But I didn't realize how much of a hangover these little bits of neglect that I had kept with me. And it's been so amazing to move through my life, and it's made such a massive change in a really short period of time to work out. It's that fine tuning, because I've always, it's something that I have often pondered about in terms of how does someone know whether they're making a choice from real joy or doing something out of guilt or doing something. It's like the idea of eating, if you eat healthy food because you think you should, it's not healthy for you. It's not because you're guilty, because if you're neglecting your true impulse to want to eat something else, then that whatever, you could eat the healthiest food in the world, it's not going to be healthy. Meanwhile, and not that I ever eat McDonald's, but if you absolutely felt that eating McDonald's was going to be an act of self-love in that moment, that McDonald's is the best thing that you could actually ever eat. And I'm like, oh my goodness, is this simple question like the answer to actually knowing exactly the right way to act the entire time? It's like, and I haven't found a situation yet where it doesn't work. I'm very intrigued to find a situation where there's another option, but it's like, is it an act of love or is it an act of neglect? And I'm like, it's like I've used it. My house is so much tidier. And I'm like, it's really interesting, because sometimes not picking something up is an act of love, but most often it's an act of neglect. And it's just really been quite revelationary. And you were talking about your business. I got onto that because it's like informing this business, informing these new thistle things. It's like we need to be really, really, really aware of what are acts of love. Are they, and what do we actually need? What is an act of love to ourselves, to our environment, to our earth? And it bypasses all the mental shoulds. I should be doing this. No, you can't actually get a should in that question. There's no way that we can have that space for that. Oh, but I'm supposed to be doing this. It's just a very simple. Anyway, so play with that and give me some feedback on how you go with that. Yeah, it's been fun. I was like, oh, thank you, Earth. That was a very nice little bit of. So I'm excited to see how that flows on after working with that for some more time.
And thank you for pointing this out. As you were speaking about it, I realized that something similar has been floating around in my world, and I noticed and I didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's act of love, act of neglect. I'll take that with me this week.
Yeah, take it with you and see. I would really love to hear about how it works, and also if you come across something where there's some other option, if it's neither.
Well, what's floating around right now is leave the dishes and do more art.
Yeah. Well, that can absolutely be an act of love if that's what you need. If that's what you need in that moment, then that is your truth. And there's no need to have guilt for that, because absolutely at some point that would be my truth a lot of the time. But then there's a lot of times where actually, no, just not doing the dishes has not got anything to do with needing to go and do art. That's just neglecting. Not that I actually don't have dishes around anymore. That would be something from my 20s. But there's a lot of other things that
Well, it's not that doing dishes is a favorite pass of time for me, and I choose to not do it every single time I use something. And there's, especially lately, so much arty things flowing through my thinking that I don't even attempt to put on paper or record in some way. So there's a simultaneous laziness of doing dishes or not, and not even picking up a pencil to do some art. So that's neglect on two sides. Or is it?
Well, that's something for you to ponder.
Yeah, I will.
Mm.
And who knows what my upcoming energetic sessions can change in that.
Yeah. Because what I can see in that is it suddenly gives us so much freedom to really do as we need to do to honor ourselves. But so often we get confused about what to do to honor ourselves. Like how do I best honor myself? How am I honoring ourselves? And then there's all these layers of how we should be behaving.
Like the French fry thing you spoke about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be an honoring of you if that's what you crave or require that day or in that 10 minutes. And for a health nerd as as someone who knows about herbs and food, and like the French fry thing would be a sin.
Yes.
Health-wise.
Yes.
And depriving yourself the happiness of a happy meal.
I have to share, I did have KFC cravings when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I actually gave into them a couple of times, and it would be the only time.
Those.
It was the only time I've really ever eaten much like junk food, pretty much since being an naturopath, probably, maybe even before that in my adult life. But I remember I'd be like, oh, I need a mask. What if someone sees me? was just so much. I'm like, I so need that. I'm like, oh, I have so much guilt. I mean, imagine if I could have just gone, this is an act of love, and just walked in there and gone, I don't really care what you're saying, because right now I'm loving myself and I'm going to eat this. How much more joy would I have been able to give myself if I had been able to free myself from those layers of whatever? Because I tell you what, right then I did need that. Yeah. And we were talking last week about guilt. Were we? Was it last week, Kim? We were talking about guilt. So it was about the interaction with a friend. Yes?
Yes. Guilt and shame.
Guilt and shame. And so, and just how much, what that actually does to our energy. But so if we're walking through our life and we're triggering feelings of guilt and shame on a random basis for any reason, doing any number of things throughout our life, on the energetic impact on that to us is massive. Like the amount of energy that we have got to give to seeding this new world without that guilt is phenomenal.
And by making those choices and asking yourself, is it an act of love or an act of neglect? And choosing an act of love, there can't be guilt.
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we should ponder that for a little bit, because that's just so beautiful. But if you got to it's an act of neglect and you still want to choose the neglect, then you've got to sit down with yourself and work out what the heck is going on. Because it's like, what am I, there's like clearly something. If you know that it's neglect and you still want to do it, then that's really time to sit down and
I'll have to explain.
yeah. Let's do.
There's this one plant in my house, and it told me gently that it would like to move into another room. And I didn't yet. And now it hears us speak about acts of love and acts of neglect. I'll move it right after this.
Yeah. let you float with that that nice quiet bliss into your respective days and evenings.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yay. Until we chat again. Yay.
That's so lovely.
Well,
See you.